Ahoy, you salty sailors. Time to raise anchor and set sail for your best scrawny life. Arrgh.
Now there's a proper crappie. Got the wind coming down the lake on this day, stirring up some mud lines elsewhere, but it's still fairly clear down here by the dam. We're going to brave the waves here, and once again we're casting a full sinking line, not only so that the line does not get tangled up in the waves, but also just to be able to cast into the wind. That point on the other side of the bay, you can see on the left side of the screen, probably has a lot more fish running on it, but with the back issues I've had, it's probably not a good idea for me to be paddling on the lake with waves like this. Although you can see other videos where I do that, but that was when my back was in better condition. And we're getting some white bass at any rate off the point. So that's a 9-foot 6-weight rod loaded with 8-weight full sinking type 3 line. The fly is a size 6 jig hook, white bucktail, Clouser minnow. Let's dial down the noise level a bit and do some river fishing instead. And what better place to enjoy the fall scenery than Iowa's scenic city of Iowa Falls. Here we are in the river just above the impoundment. It's a small section of river. The largest fish probably never leave the impoundment. The river section, we're not really going to break any world records there, but it'll be a nice place to fish. We'll get some hammer handles there, and it'll be a place to enjoy the fall scenery as well. Throughout this section, the riverbed is composed mostly of broken limestone, although there's some sand and marl in other places as well. But once again, there are these large, igneous, erratic boulders, due to the fact that we are on the eastern edge of what was once the Des Moines Lobe Glacier. It's a little more difficult to tell in comparison to terminal moraines, but I think I passed through an area of lateral moraines on my way up here on Highway 69. In any case, we've got a big granite boulder in the river here. The thing to understand about the ice is that simple cooling is not enough. If the effect is transporting many, many tons of rock, the cause is unlikely to be simply lowering the amount of energy in the system. Let's say, for instance, the sun enters a period of lower output, or there's volcanism that sends ash into the sky, into the upper atmosphere for a long time that results in cooling global temperatures. That's not enough to cause miles thick sheets of ice to accumulate on the land, because you need evaporation. You need a large amount of evaporation to get that water from the ocean onto the land. And remember, during the Ice Age, the sea level was significantly lower. Water had left the ocean and piled up on land. And here we see on one side limestone, on the other side granite. So it's fairly specific. You need a cold land, but a hot ocean, relatively speaking. Now, the ordinary process of tectonic plate movement does put heat into the ocean, does transfer heat to the ocean, as wherever the continental plates are moving apart, new hot seafloor must emerge from below. So perhaps something occurred that simply accelerated that process. Perhaps an asteroid impact at an oblique angle, actually I'm not sure if that's actually possible, literally pushed the continental plates, causing more than normal new seafloor to emerge and therefore transfer heat into the ocean. Stated a different way, we could say that there was an energy input into a planet that is 70% covered with water, and the process of dissipating that energy resulted in these granite boulders being transported by glaciers. If you've seen on this channel the video entitled Afoot in Alden, this is the same section of river where we started off the season. And I'm here again for the same reason, because the Iowa Falls impoundment offers a refuge for the fish from the drought, from the low river levels elsewhere. And once again, although we started off with some rain earlier in the year, the season has wound down very, very dry. It has not rained in months, it seems, but population numbers are good within this one section. The falling river level, of course, is forcing fish down, as well as cooling temperatures. So that's why we're not in Alden anymore. We're at the lower end of that river section, just above Iowa Falls. It's where numbers of fish are going to accumulate as they move down towards the Iowa Falls impoundment. Unfortunately, I broke the tip on the 7-weight, the old IM6 9-foot 7-weight with a mahogany handle. Had that rod, it was the first kit I ever built. I had that rod for decades. It's been broken and rebuilt many times. Maybe we'll do a rod repair episode here later on, but I don't know, maybe it's time to finally retire that rod. But anyway, the spare rod was the Micro Skagit rod, a much shorter rod. So I'm having, it's not intended to cast pike flies, and we're having some issues getting the fly out there and missing the hook sets, since we don't have the hook setting power of a 9-foot rod. But I'm not complaining. That old gray limestone and the autumn leaves and a nice green pool, and it's got plenty of fish in it. They're not giants, but we got plenty of fish. I mean, I could have gone further north and chased the big fish on the Cedar River maybe, but it's when you get this little section of river all to yourself, it always puts a smile on your face. Although looking back now, I think it would be more appropriate to the size of this little section, especially since I knew that the water level would be very low, to have fished it rather than with the 7-weight that I would have brought to the Cedar River or to a larger river to chase bigger fish. I should have instead brought a 5-weight. Let's say a size 4 woolly conehead woolly bugger. You cast on a 5-weight, probably would have caught all the same fish that I've caught on the larger pike fly, and it would be more appropriate to the size of the fish I was catching. Didn't think of it at the time, but maybe that's a fly tying project for over the winter. All the same, it was great to be out there just catching fish in the cool autumn air with the summer humidity and the drone of the cicadas and mosquitoes all gone, and that thoughtful quiet of autumn settled in over the area. Really struggling to cast the fly with that rod, but I managed. But maybe the fly that pike will bite and that can be cast with micro Skagit gear could be a winter fly tying project, I think. Make an episode about that. I had launched at Weaver's Cove and paddled upstream. And when I came to the D20 bridge, there was a local guy spin fishing who said he had caught a pike and two large smallmouth. But since he was there, that was sort of his quote unquote area. So I just paddled past him on the other side of the river. But now on my way down underneath that same bridge, I've caught a good pike. So this is surely the pike that he caught earlier. It's put a real bend on that micro Skagit rod. That's what we like. That autumn light, golden leaves, furious little pike putting on weight for the winter, and a rod bent double to the very handle. But a decent pike for that section of river. The large smallmouth, I could see them. They would follow the fly every once in a while, but you could tell that they had been caught once already that day and were pretty shy. They would follow the fly, but they wouldn't strike it. And they were quite large, larger than anything that I had caught that day. And there were several large carp in that under that bridge as well. But with just being down to just the micro Skagit rod and a sinking line, I really didn't. And with the light the way it was and everything, I didn't have much chance of being able to hook one. But there were some giant carp underneath that bridge too. But back to the subject of the pike and smallmouth. It does show that catch and release works, and in general, just having some respect for the fish and thinking about not only yourself in that moment, but also the next person who's going to catch that fish, maybe even on that same day. It does allow the population to continue in its natural balance and to be enjoyed over and over. The fact that the fishing is much the same, on this occasion, as it was several decades ago when I first fished this area, I think speaks to a widespread understanding that it's not a limitless resource. It's a small section of river, and a person's actions today affect the quality of fishing tomorrow. So I think that's a great sign that people are aware of the unique and fragile nature of the river that's literally in their backyards, doing what they can to preserve the resource and just being aware that it's not a limitless resource. All right, just a few moments left here. I did find a Laetoporus sulphureus, chicken of the woods. This is another fall polypore. And I made vegetarian tamales with it, just a simple corn flour dough and the mushrooms pre-cooked with some onions and so forth, and wrapped up in that dough and then steamed. Um, so these generally, this is not the cincinnatus. This is not Laetoporus cincinnatus, although it's emerging around the base of a tree. Usually you see these on fallen logs, but in this case it's emerging around the base of the tree, but it is the sulphureus variety. All right, that's it for this one. We'll see you next time.